Gotcha. Okay. Put the
Okay.
phone down. I don't know how this technology works. We're all trusting that, hi, out there in Facebook land, you may be on my page, you may not. I don't know. It's all good.
It's brilliant. So, welcome. I've been looking forward to having this discussion with you for quite some time. I remember seeing you. Um, I don't think it was a TED talk. I think it was another platform, and someone sent me the link to one of your videos, and I was like, "Who is this lady? This is amazing. Look at the work she's doing." And so that was a couple
Thank
of
you.
years
Well,
ago.
it definitely wasn't, I haven't made it to a TED talk yet. So it was,
Okay, yeah. So I can't remember the
yeah.
platform, but it was on stage, and you were doing, I think, a 1 or 2 hour talk, and yeah, it was awesome. And I was just like, this is amazing. Like, this is so amazing for the children, and I just loved your work. And I've been following you ever since, and been really curious about, the ascended masters, young ascended masters, and things you're doing. And we will jump into that shortly, but I am aware that people on your platform may not know who I am. So hi, I'm Natasha. I have a page called Raising Alchemy, and basically I've set that up to really, the purpose of it is to really try to empower people, empower myself, so that we can support the children to basically live their full potential and purpose. And so I've really found that through my journey, and I've kind of stepped back a lot and come forward and stepped back a lot with the page, but more and more I realize that I'm just showing up as me, in my experience, and realizing that the more that I do the work focus on me and clear out, all my triggers and all my junk, and really step into my spirituality and who I am, I'm much easier able to empower my daughter. And I really wanted to share that with parents and people, and a lot of it, often people have related it to their own inner child and the work that can be done with that, and it's really just been expanding from there. And it's still evolving, and I just really just want to turn up in authenticity. And I know that word gets thrown around a little bit, but really just turn up being raw and being me, and that's kind of where it's heading more and more. And what I love about your work, Kaylaa, in that is that I feel like some of the messages that I really feel that I want to share with people is really about the adult aspect and working on self. And then you've got this amazing aspect where you take the gifts of these beautiful children, and you empower them to feel like this is okay. Like you can experience this, and I'd love to hear some stories around that as well. Just anything that comes up or regular comes up, or have some questions around that. So let's jump to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and a little bit maybe of where you've come and how you've landed to working with the children. That would be amazing.
Okay. Well, everything you just said is so cool because it mirrors my own mission, and even some of the words that you're using, it's all the same. So when you did approach me, I think it was either fall, late summer, and Raising Alchemy. I do want to ask you how you decided to come up with that name, but I wasn't quite ready to step into it yet. And it's like, oh, I don't want to say no because I want her to come back in a couple of months, but not right now, no. So so it was awesome when you like reached out again about a month ago, and it's like, okay, just do it. Just say yes, commit it, put it on a calendar. And then all heck broke loose in my life, and it was a huge shift and release for me, I just
Mm.
have to say. Midnight on a Monday, I contacted you, like I think it was morning for you or something, or um, and it took me about 4 or 5 days to figure out what the trigger was, because
Mm.
my next day was beyond horrible. Haven't had a day like that in a really long time, and just panicking and doubting. Oh, it was just truly horrible. And it was like this birthing of something new. And a week later, my own gifts of doing energy work came online to where I was more confident. I mean, it's just been an
Mm.
amazing ride in April.
Wow.
And I once we step into it, the universe takes over. If it's an all in, I commit, I'm doing it. And it was that matter of even the symbology of
Mm.
taking this step. So you're going down in my memoir history books as being a big one. So
That's
yeah, own
beautiful.
it, girl.
Yeah, yeah,
Own it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah,
So
incredible, incredible. And I'd been through,
yeah,
I think I'd been on the Magdalena training as well. And I'd had a big shift not long after you as well. And I think we were connecting on that a little bit in our messaging back and forth as well. But yeah, I love those
yeah,
stories. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So my background, as far as the teaching element, I refer to myself a multidimensional teacher. I don't know, depending on what group hears that. Some people think it's, oh, well, she just like teaches lots of dimensions in mainstream teaching. Isn't that sweet? And others kind of hear it as it's really funny. I've gotten that feedback. So it's an odd title, I guess, but so between teaching, mentoring the multidimensional kids, um, working with parents, um, again, stepping into some of my own individual healing work with people, it hasn't always been like this. I wouldn't even 10 years ago, I think it was 2012, I had my first experience even trying to de stress, hooked up with a guy that I worked with who I knew did Reiki. One, probably wouldn't have preferred a, a guy, I probably would have sought out a woman, so why that happened. One, I had Reiki I only knew of on one experience, had no idea was what I was walking into, and all I wanted to do was a relaxation response. And from there, he just knocked my socks off in
Mm, mm.
blockages and releases and things that I'd been in therapy for years trying to reconcile, and all of a sudden, without saying anything, there's a hand on my ankle and a hand on my knee, and this flood of sadness and
Wow.
grief, and I'm sobbing on the table in front of this guy I don't even know, and I can't breathe. And he's like, well, just breathe through it. And I'm like,
Yeah,
what
just breathe.
the heck? And I had then, for the next 5 or 6 years, went back to him religiously every other week, and it was like clearing an Amazon forest full of vines and attachments and entities and a lifetime of stuff. Um, and finally, when enough stuff is cleared, you start looking at belief systems and even opening up the gifts, and people come into your life and buyer, oh my gosh, what is channeling? And you're going to tell me that that person is really channeling what? So I had to go through this whole process of satisfying my skeptical mind. Yet as I met very credible people, and these were their gifts, obviously it led to being open. And in 2017, was at an expo listening. If you've ever, well, you're in that part of the world, Mary Rodwell.
I've heard the
Have you heard
name.
of
Yeah,
Mary Rodwell?
yeah.
Well, she was speaking, and she just put out a new book called The New Human about
Mm,
these children. Um, and I'm not sitting in the audience going, well, I teach, I guess presentation about kids would be interesting. And then she starts talking about some of these kids remembering life on other planets and how they visit spaceships at night to learn two new technologies. And I'm sitting there going, wait, what? And all of a sudden, it was like my head started exploding, and it truly felt like pings and fireworks. And I could barely hold a thought while I'm listening to her, going, I don't even know if this is true, but what's happening in my head? And it, if you've ever heard of things like key codes,
Yeah,
like okay, so we're kind of set
yeah.
in our little blueprint of, okay, when she gets to be way too old for this, we're going to trigger one of those. So at 58, she could start doing some real work. Um, and within a couple of months, I got myself into a program that was going to help me hone and discover even what gifts that I didn't even know I had. Started working through this organization with a conscious youth program and helped develop that program for the organization for about 3 years, and fell in love with this and the kids and knew this was a calling. And a year ago this month, a year ago May, is when I kind of took flight on my own and started Young Ascended Masters. And that's where I'm at today, ever evolving, just like you're saying. It keeps shifting and changing, and we're going through a massive shift right now that I don't know where it's going to end up with. But it's that focus on the kids is where my passion and own recognition and presence and being this beacon, and we've got past lives together, and I've done this work before, and I've met these kids before and all that stuff. But the realization that we can't do the supporting of these kids without the parents. They came here choosing their parents for a reason, to live out the mission that they can. And of course, my work would go in that direction. I didn't know that 3 years ago. I kind of resisted a little bit. Put on a parent group. I want to work with the kids. But I'm just so enjoying. We've got a parent support group community. I don't even know what to call it. We call it the gathering place, because it's as much a tribe and community for them as it is talking about raising these amazing kids and some of the challenges that comes with.
What ages do you predominantly work with?
I'm sorry?
What ages of the children do you work with?
Right now, 8 to 18. And in this other organization, we had like 9 to 18. And what was happening was the recognition that age range developmentally is just so drastically different, but you only have so much time and energy as a volunteer doing this. Our next step in that program certainly would have been to split the groups, but I was able to really do that on my own. So I might as well just jump right into this. So we have a program that the kids meet remotely as a full group at times, and then split like 8 to 12 and 13 to 18-year-olds. And I still, my latest is I want to get these older kids together, and maybe like 17 to 22. And it's just, they're all so different and unique, and just incredible depth and insight, and but truly human in their development. So they're still learning, and the psychological developments and everything else and experiences really have to be focused at that human level. And I think we hear these kids are old souls and young ascended masters, and they're coming in, but they're little kids who just want to play. And they're teenagers who just want to belong in a peer group. And they're college kids going, what am I doing here? So that's another whole thing. So,
wow. So the children that you work with, I guess I'm curious around, is it often, especially the young ones, is it the parents that recognize that, either they're gifted, or, the parents normally aware, or, in awareness of consciousness themselves, or are they kind of, as the children, do you have children that come along that where the parents go, I don't really understand this, and they kind of seek something out and then find you? Or is it, like how conscious is the choice versus from the child versus parent that finds you, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, good question. Initially, because of the following of the organization that I was in, I became known and gravitated. The kids started coming because I'd say moms and dads, but mostly moms, were already on their own spiritual path and recognizing these gifts in their kids. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we could hook our kids up They're feeling alienated and alone, and just to have community for them, plus continue to develop their gifts. And the biggest fear for some of the moms, not the biggest fear, it's not really, but I don't want my kids to lose touch with their gifts like I did, says mom, says me, says many of us. You get to a certain age and you either shut it down yourself because it's too painful, and you don't know how to even navigate that. So it's mostly the mom's journey bringing the kids. Lately, that shift has happened as I kind of explore out into different Facebook groups myself and just get involved and one jump in where it feels right, and people are coming that way. So it's my child is waking me up, and I don't know what to do. They're waking up in
Wow.
the middle of the night and they've got these beings, and I don't know if they're crazy or I'm crazy or what to do with them, and can you help? And so it's a subtle shift. And what's really interesting that I say whenever I can is, as adults, we need to be aware of what's our desire for us being on the path, and what we really desire for the child, which is to be introduced to all of this spirituality and develop their gifts. And it's not, how do I say that? We need to respect what the child wants. I haven't had too many occasions, but every now and then there's something just doesn't feel right. And it's like, well, my mom wanted me to be here. And it's like, oh, honey, and it's like making your kid play football when they really want to play the guitar, and the rest of their life they don't want to go near a sport because they were forced to do something. So that's we're always planting seeds, so everybody's welcome. And who knows? I certainly can't judge what they're picking up. Um, but there's also that, like, okay, it'll be okay, mom. It'll unfold. This is your desire, and let's you and I talk.
Yeah.
So there's kind of that really delicate balance that needs to play out sometime. But
Yeah, awesome. And
it's
sorry,
so
remind me.
exciting to see these.
Yeah, yeah, it is. That's incredible. I'm just curious, why from 8?
I kind of fell into it with this group that was already formed. It was 9 to 18, so we kept that. Um, I would often get requests from parents with younger kids. So then it was like, well, let me stretch it. If they're 8, well,
Sure.
no set hard and fast. Yes, they've got little 5-year-olds who are ready for college and brilliant and tapped in. But truly, I coming from a mainstream teacher background, which I didn't really get into that, but um, we just have to pay attention to the developmental and life experiences. It's not appropriate to have the same conversation, even maybe spiritually. Certainly, the 16-year-old and the 8-year-old may both be channeling. They most, incredibly intuitive, like past all that stuff, but they don't know the conversation. It's just not appropriate. Teenage conversations are teenage conversations, and these kids don't even know the vocabulary yet, and things like that. And it really is something I'm mindful of, in wanting to separate that. Now, one of the things I do for Young Ascended Masters is, once a month we have a guest teacher come in who's like an expert in channeling or light language or something, psychometry. Oh my gosh, we've done everything. Energy work, um, in June, we're going to have somebody who does palm reading. We're going to teach the
Oh,
kids how to
fun.
identify lines. So it's more of the like extraordinary, exciting, provocative things that we're either teaching them or that they're already doing.
Mm,
And the off weeks are let's build community, get to know each other, realize that you're not alone.
mm, mm.
And yes, you have these innate gifts that frankly I have to stop falling out of my chair when the depth of what comes across my screen. And I've heard you talk before about not making the mistake of holding these kids up on a pedestal because this is just who they are.
Mm,
They aren't our gifts. We're yearning to have these kind of gifts
yeah,
unfold for us. They're natural in these kids, but if we're like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, they're looking like, what are you talking about? This is just
yeah.
me,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Normalizing it. And
Yeah.
I don't like the words normal and because what is normal? But um from what I've witnessed and from the number of conversations I've had with people and adults that have experienced it when they were children, it's just that it is that they feel different, they feel alone, they feel they don't not not sure that other people think like this. Am I weird? Am I crazy? How do I stop this? And we've all been through it. I think you've mentioned it as well. That shutting down or the fear or what is this or I don't want to see that and it gets shut down and then it kind of eventually we realize that we're probably stronger in ourselves and in a safer place or not, it just decides this is the right time and you kind of hold on for the ride. But it's I'm interested with the children. Like for me, that feels like just such a nourishing environment for them to realize there are others the same age or around, or even seeing, even having people come in and talk about it because it's that exposure. And often I feel like I forget that sometimes it's almost still the minority of people that think like we do or that appreciate the gifts, and it's really hard, I think, for these children to be in, again, labels, but like mainstream, for lack of a better word. Um, and it must be so, like, I guess for me, there's an element there that I'm wondering about around they come to a program such as this and they feel so seen and nourished and able to explore and they may not even be able to label what it is they're feeling or what they're experiencing and then someone might come in and read a poem and they really associate with it and go, oh, this is what I've been kind of why I've been so curious or energy or whatever. And but how then do you do how do they then integrate the expansion of that back into their lives? So how does the transition work from being within the program and how, I guess, just how have you found the children being able to navigate that within themselves?
Um, that's kind of evolving, and that's where my desire to take this program a step further. We meet and it's isolated. It's awesome for them. And I get feedback from moms as far as some of the changes that is happening in their life. So I guess I can address that. Um, but I'm still wanting to pick their brains in
Mm, mm,
setting up even one-on-ones with them just spontaneously based on something they said in the meeting. It's like, hey, you want to meet with me? And here I am realizing, okay, I'm a 62-year-old woman. Some little 12-year-old might be a little intimidated to sit one-on-one with an adult versus a room. And I forget that sometimes, because I tap so much into this whole childlikeness, which is their energy as well. And
mm,
um, so I'm still learning from them.
mm,
I've got
mm,
a rain check appointment in May with a mom and a 12-year-old that's telepathic, and we just kind of
mm,
helped identify that. One of our teachers last year is telepathic, and she was doing some short insight uh, about them, which is where I really felt honored to be in the presence of these kids who have been like forever on this planet and other ones who've I mean, I can't even go into the magnificence that she was identifying for them in giving them these little snippets of insight.
Mm.
And what's so beautiful about that is I was watching on the Zoom screen as she's talking to them, and they each got maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Um, and even the shyest ones, it's just like they're sitting up a little bit. Like, this is really me, and these are the gifts
Oh.
I have, and these are, I mean, and the smiles on it still gives me chills. I mean, the smiles on their faces, and that is what they walk away with. I
Mm.
mean, they
Mm.
can't not be changed by that in a level of confidence. And even if it's like this doubt, could it be? The seed is planted. And
Mm.
eventually that consciousness is going to bubble up a little bit. Um, and again, it was like, I've known these kids, I know they're special, I see things coming through questions and meditations and all this, but I was so taken aback.
Mm.
And this is when Young Ascended Masters was just unfolding. And the name itself, I got challenged by a few people not in my circle, so let's just say,
Mm.
that I thought, well, let me, this is an exciting business I'm starting, whatever, and realizing somebody might see Young Ascended Masters and be a parent, and I'll just talk to the parents out there. If this is you, and you go, my kid is as far from a Young Ascended Master as he's jumping from the couch, not listening to me, doing this crazy ass stuff, um, maybe this group isn't for me. I would say even the Ascended Masters started, I won't say fully unaware, but not fully aware. And for me, this Young Ascended Masters, my own experience, which I shared with you in my story, one of my first awakenings um, was when Ascended Master Jesus, not the Catholic Church
Mm.
Jesus that I
Yeah.
was led to should believe in, um, Ascended Master Jesus, as I was inviting him to become known to me. Um, I'm driving in my car one day and I felt this presence next to me all of a sudden, and
Mm.
it's like he just like plopped in on my passenger seat in response to my being open with intention, saying,
Mm.
I don't know who you are, I would like to get to know you, and boom, so being forever curious about what his human experience was like, um, about 6, 7 years ago, I ran across a book, um, Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, if you've ever heard of that book.
Mm.
It's channeled through Anna of the Bible, and she gives the metaphysical version of the Jesus story of history.
Mm.
Her own
Interesting.
experiences. It's so amazing. It's so challenging because this is what I grew up as a Catholic.
Same.
Um, but it was all just so resonating true. And this was a time in my life where I'm feeling really flawed as a human, and we go through cycles of patterning into the same old stuff, although I'm growing spiritually, and this human stuff is really sucks, and limiting, and I'm never going to get it. I'd rather be spiritual and
Mm.
divine and going through the cosmos. And I read this book, a few pages describing Jesus as a child through grandma's eyes, and
Mm.
talking about, yes, you know, his experience on this planet was orchestrated with all the players and everything else coming in, although free will, but watched as they prepared for this light to be conceived and come through, and explained it as his light was so powerful that he had to also come in veiled to a
Mm,
certain degree in order to
mm,
even be within the
mm,
physical body limitations, and needed teachers and mentors to
mm.
show him and to teach him. Also, yes, he was divine and magnificent, but again, the human
He was human.
psychology and development, even for Jesus, had to happen. And in this book, she says, if he was alive today, well, my conclusion is, if he was alive today, certainly he'd be ADHD. I mean, like a little ball of energy. There
Yeah,
were emotional
yeah.
explosions because of the downloads, to where my favorite story is Joseph actually sent him away to a certain cave when he'd have these emotional upsets, with the direction of, explore this, express it, let
Mm,
it pass through you, and know this is not you, but it needs to come out.
mm.
And teaching him, do it in a way, there's nothing wrong with you, it's not to be judged, but this is your own initiation. And
Wow.
I'm like, if Jesus himself struggled to be human, who am I to not want that?
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
It
absolutely.
was
Yeah,
it was so powerful, and it just helped me like sink
yeah.
into, this is why I'm here. This is why he was here. So
We're not
ascended
separate from,
master,
right?
the
Like we
ascended
are ascended
master.
masters, right? As well. I am, we are,
We are,
yeah.
and whether it's in this lifetime we get to that exact level of consciousness, or many of these kids have already been there multiple times. And again, one of the reasons they're even coming back is for this raising of the vibration of the planet. Can you imagine like being this ascended master up in not up in, but you know where I'm saying, in some other dimension? It may be next to me. Hey,
Yeah.
I still say up.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny, isn't
But
it? Yeah.
yeah, but then to agree to the containment of what our
Mm,
body
mm,
is
mm,
for the gift to humanity,
mm.
and having to let that go and relearn it again. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
wow, that's,
yeah.
and so here are these kids, and I'm just so honored to be in their presence.
Mm,
And I believe at some level my own presence is allowing them a recognition of each other, and even part of my own mission statement, it to help them recognize who they are. And
mm.
if I can be a reflection of that for them, to come to that, you know, awareness, and then claim these gifts. And back to you mentioned the word weird. Um, it's like the mantra of our group. The kids have been with me for a number of years. Weird is good.
Yeah,
That's
weird
like
is
going to be my
great.
bumper sticker. It's going to be my tombstone. Weird is good. Um, they come in, and it's so common that they've been called that many times in their life,
And not
whether
a
it's
nice.
by relatives, even friends. Um, and I'm like, oh no, weird is good. Weird just means
Yeah,
people don't understand the real you and need to put you somewhere. You found this group here, weird is good, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And the kids that hear me say that periodically just sit there with the biggest smile, knowing exactly what I'm going to say. And, eventually we all like, truly a t-shirt. Weird is good.
I love that. Exactly. Oh, I love that. It's the uniqueness. I love that story that you shared about the book and Jesus, because there was a lot of opening up for me when you were saying that. That brought a lot of different perspective online that I'm going to have to contemplate once I have a moment to sit down and think about that. But part of it too is how beautiful, it's such a beautiful example. And this is what I try and, I try and provide this even just for my daughter. And it's such a simple takeaway is, when they feel that emotion or they feel that it comes out, sometimes we classify it as the, the ADHD or a behavior, rather than seeing for what it is and allowing the child to give them the opportunity to go deep into it. If you need to, I'm here, I can support you. If you need to, I don't know. So often I've explained to my daughter, if she feels the frustration, and instead of shutting down, I'm trying to get her to allow that energy to come through, and whether it's hitting a pillow or grabbing one of her soft toys or whatever. But for me, a lot of that, like going in, as you said, sort of Joseph telling him to go into the cave and explore that. But some of it for me is allowing that the children to be free to express that without feeling the shame, or that they have to hide away, or that they can tantrum because that's how they are trying to express what's coming out. And it's not necessarily a behavior issue, even though we classify it as it can be play out in that way. But I think that's really important, is allowing them to really big on feeling. For me, it's really aligned, all of this is aligned very much with the suppression of emotion. And so allowing that to come through the body and to be felt by the body. And I'm relearning it myself as an adult, to feel that anger and sometimes rage, feel that come through, allow it to pass through my body, allow it to come into the heart and expand, because it's a lot of that is so suppressed, like that sit down and be seen and be quiet and how often do you see someone in full rage? To be able to have spaces where it's accepted to be able to move that type of energy through you in front of others that hold no judgment is incredible. And I have this what if we can teach our children, that's part of it for me, is to fully feel what they feel, but be able to provide them those tools to deal with it. And that's also me, for me, I can speak to myself, showing up in front of my daughter within reason, but she sees my emotion, she sees, and it's okay to feel that. And, we talk about it and how you're feeling. And sometimes she doesn't want, she doesn't know how to articulate it, or she's 6, or she doesn't, fully understand. But it's so important. I'm really big on that emotional side. And when you were talking about that story, there was a lot of that I was feeling was being able to go and explore what comes up, whether that is just something that isn't, that is quite a calming experience or an energy. But and I think even now as adults, we sometimes push that to the side, that we can feel something coming through and we get caught up in our humanness in our day to be able to explore that. But that's incredible.
Yeah,
I love that story.
yeah. Oh, you've got to get the book. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
book I've been through it at least 4 times in the last 6 years, and each time it reads differently. But not to say that they shove Jesus off into a cave. So you read it, and it's a whole different tone than how I realized. It's like, here, time out, Jesus, go to your cave. So it wasn't quite
symbolic.
like that. It was a teaching moment. Yeah. Yeah, the inventor of timeout. But even but parents, I mean, it's really a total calling for parents to undo everything they've known about parenting with these kids, and even calling it a whole new paradigm. We were raised that you are a reflection of your parents, and most of the time you bring shame to your parents when you're acting like a kid, because you shouldn't act that way, because what are the neighbors going to think? And they're going to think I don't discipline you enough, and I don't control you enough. Truly, it's control. And these kids, one, are not here to be controlled. If people that are, oh, my child is so defiant, well, no, he's just owning who he is.
Yeah.
And we are the ones that need to adjust.
Yeah.
In letting that flourish, and it's a true co-creation. But if you say that to certain people, and truly, it's been a mindset, even as a teacher, shifting. What
Mm,
does it mean to be a teacher?
mm,
Because the class is out of control. Well, if I have a class perhaps that the world calls emotionally disturbed, which is where I taught for 15 years in a day treatment center, all kinds of labels, the ADHD, the emotional disturbed, you name it, 50% of them were medicated on something or another. And you put all these kids with those explosive things happening to them together, and it was a tough place to work.
mm,
But I recognized in my final years working and starting to work with the conscious children, this 16-year-old in front of me who sitting quietly and all of a sudden jumps out of her seat, starts saying every cuss word in the book, yelling at me, runs out of the classroom, and is a holy terror for the next 20 minutes and may need to be restrained.
mm,
Oh my gosh, is this the same kid that I'm on a call with at 7 o'clock at night who mom says he has these emotional meltdowns and blow ups and then feels bad a few hours later? Well, gosh, if we look at our own self during ascension, how many times do we talk about getting downloads,
mm,
energetic downloads that
mm,
just make us buzz and feel like we're on a sugar
mm,
high? Or it's like if these kids probably triple that extent are getting these downloads all the time, they don't know what a download is. They don't know that they're getting energy, and somehow giving them techniques to expel it, just like you
mm,
were talking with your daughter and hitting pillow. However, we need grounding outside, um, but we need to be giving them the language to know how to describe what's happening and
mm,
really tell them this is all about energy. I mean, we need to teach them quantum physics.
yeah.
That's my next. Oh man, don't
That
even
would be
go there. But
amazing. How do you teach
well,
an 8-year-old quantum physics? What would
you know, I don't know if you've ever heard my latest like bombshell level of evolving myself. Marina Jacoby, if you've ever heard of her mission here, she's teaching quantum physics, the structure, the quantum structure that we each live in and manifest for ourselves within this earthly structure and all this crazy matrix programming that's around us, how to learn this, empower ourselves, and transcend that. Um, and weekly, I'm listening to her talk, and I was last night just listened to another episode, and again, it's this pull to we need to teach our kids this like
mm,
now. Now, of course, what she's teaching is the whiteboard, and I'm taking notes, and it's like a college graduate course that she's getting all this stuff downloaded and technologies and amazing, amazing stuff. So I don't know where this is going to lead, but my teacher self is like, okay, I know how to take really big things and quote unquote dumb it down,
mm,
into
mm.
basic elements.
That's
And is
exciting.
this where this is leading? I have no idea, but it's about the third time in a
Wow.
month that I've had this. These kids just need to know this. They need to know that their thoughts are power
Mm,
and how to control their thoughts and don't have to be 58 years old like I was in order to let go of these horribly abusive, self sabotaging things that we all say to each other, or to ourselves, I
mm.
should say, you know. And can you tell I get excited about this stuff?
Yeah, it makes me feel
It's
excited as well. And I know any of
it's
those
just so
concepts,
neat.
Yeah. Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah. No, it's just all such potential, and
Mm,
yet at the same time, back to Marina and what she's putting out there is we are in a reality that is going to get worse around us as structures begin to crumble and we begin to see some of the
mm,
truly the matrix around us. And I'm beginning to feel this urgency, which is where reaching out to the parents is so important. The parents are the only ones that can protect these kids at this point, between the chemical aspect. Here in America, they just signed legislation somewhere to mandate that second graders start learning all this sexual, like, uh, woke agendas. Um, it's like, well, yeah, teach your child to be open and non-judgmental, and but in second grade, developmentally, they're not capable of understanding this stuff, and it need not be done in schools. So what is happening in our schools, and talk about losing our gifts at an early age, you know, they're inundated with stuff that is so far removed from what we're talking about here.
Sure.
And they're going to be shutting down. They're just, and it's up to the parents to recognize what some of this programming is and just take a stand. And as confusing as it is for them, you're the only thing standing between your child and some really ugly stuff, you know. So
sorry, I think I'm not sure I completely understood. So are they teaching about being woke in schools, but you're saying it's a different agenda, or it's not something that they can understand?
It's the big thing right now. The topics that are huge. One is, not really teaching some of the historical and race theory, and I don't even know what it's called because I'm trying not the critical race theory. Okay, so there's that stuff going on here. The um, transgender equality, not that we shouldn't do that, and this is going to be misunderstood. If anybody's watching this, not what I'm saying. I'm saying some of these topics and exposure to the youngest kids isn't necessary. So whatever is behind that isn't in the best interest of children. So without getting into conspiracy theories or whatever, but something's going on that it may take a few more years to really see what that intention is. But by then, all I know is I've got a grandniece that's just starting in preschool, and I just keep taking a deep breath and trusting, you know. But it's these kids that are going to be changing the world. And if there truly is a light dark battle right now, which there is, the light of these children has to be suppressed for the darkness to keep doing what it's doing. These are the kids that aren't buying in yet. So as long as we can keep them from that kind of programming that you and I are still trying to even recognize, it's they're coming up with new technologies. I mean, it's just incredible. It's just so cool. Just so cool. And I don't know, I went off on all directions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it was great. I followed you. I came with you.
Okay.
You talked about a quote that you have on the wall, and it was a quote, and I can't remember, but there's a quote that you've mentioned a few times in some of your lives. Do you know? I can't remember what it is.
Oh, yeah, it's on my wall. Yeah. It's right there. We walk the human story we're meant to transmute in others.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love that quote. And when you were talking, part of me was, like exactly that. We've come to experience what we need to experience, right? So we've got that soul signature of, and as simplified as, we choose our parents, but also the experiences that we have. And when you were talking, part of me was that was coming through for me was more around, sometimes is also allowing the children that are experiencing what we fear them to be experiencing often need to experience that to then help transmute that in the world, right? Which is also, there's a powerful flip side to that as well. And when you were talking, I was like, you've got a quote that talks about this, and that's what like I was thinking of then. But you know, and it's hard. I can really connect with what you're saying there, because I co-parent my daughter, and as a compromise, she's currently in what you call a traditional school. I would prefer that she wasn't, and that's just how it is. But we're chalk and cheese, and her father and I, but I strongly, you know, I believe she's come here to transmute that polarity between us. She's getting both sides of it, and there's something big in that for her. But I do feel that a lot of what I'm doing is trying to undo and pick out everything that, you know, that is happening at the school or in that environment, but and making sure she's got the right exposure from my perspective that I believe that she needs to have, or that I would like to see her have in my environment. But then part of me has to step back sometimes and say, well, she chose this. And sometimes it's hard to get the balance of, well, could I do something about it? And should I do something about it? Or is she here as a sovereign being and that's what she's chosen? And it's quite hard to get the balance there sometimes with that.
Totally. I like that parenting thing that you chose to do. I just chose to be an aunt. I don't have my own kids, and I think there were lots of reasons that my soul was smart enough not to do that. Because seriously, I don't know if I could be a parent well. Now that I'm like 60, I might be willing to try it, but you know, my whole thing was I don't want to screw any kids up, so it's not my choice right now. Um, and now that I don't think I would, I am far from being able to have any. But no, your job as a parent is imagine you live it, putting your own life together and evolving and healing and all that is a full-time job, let alone to be companioning this beautiful soul coming in and switching the am I responsible for keeping them safe? Well, yes, and they might be here to live out a blueprint, just like you're saying, that is going to accept all kinds of karmic density early on so they can transmute it early on. And for as nice as that sounds spiritually, that means life's going to be crap for a while. If they're going to take this on, it's going to be a heck of a difficult life. And watching that as a parent, we don't know if this is truly what they're here for. And how do we not? I mean, yeah, it's that balance of one, we can do what we can do, we can love them, we can help them navigate through it, but I can't fix it for them. Now, certainly, yeah, if there's abuse, you better well be fixing it for them. But there's going to be pains they go through that it's not a reflection of how I raise them or how I love them, or it's their journey. And that discernment has to be one of the hardest out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's just got to be.
Yeah. I guess you'd find that too within your teaching as well, you know, like there's an element there where you are a figure that is almost in a parenting role as well, right? You don't necessarily have to have had birth to be a parent or a example to the children either. But yeah, for me, and it's something you mentioned as well, is my biggest journey, and still is at the moment, is just releasing that control, you know, just letting it go. In quite a lot of aspects. And it was interesting. I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Yesterday or heard of the movie Yesterday? So it's a movie
I
where they have
don't
to
think
say
so.
yes to their children for the whole day.
Oh, no, I've seen similar things or heard. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so I gave my daughter one last weekend, and I was just really curious. So there's guidelines, and I posted about this on my personal wall, but there's guidelines, like it can't significantly change the future. So she couldn't ask for a puppy, for example. Like I wouldn't say yes to a puppy because then we'd still have the puppy the next day. But it's more around experiences. So anything that she wanted to do, I had to say yes. So, and she didn't have, as she gets older, I've said she can have one every year, and I'll probably do it more often than that, to be honest, because I loved it. But it was really interesting for me. She was still cottoning on to the idea of she wasn't really pushing me to, like, can I have a, ice cream sundae and with, the plate, massive plate, and I'll just sit here and eat it all, like she wasn't really, but there were things like, she was still at the playground and it was dark, and, there's normal things I wouldn't be doing. But what was really interesting about that whole experience was, and we did a whole heap of stuff, and she was amazing. She wanted to spend most of it outside and riding her bike and climbing and doing stuff rather than inside in front of a screen or whatever, which could have gone that way had she wanted to. I would have said yes, but which is very unusual, very unusual. But I had to catch myself a number of times, that control of even just like it wasn't what I wanted to do, or I didn't, I was over being at the playground, or oh no, I'm too tired, or actually we should probably go home, or actually no, but it was a really interesting narrative for me to realize, like, all of those aspects of with our children that we just almost condition ourselves to be like, almost well, we're trying to be sovereign, and like we're so self-centered as humans. As soon as we wake up, we're like, am I hungry? Am I cold? Do I need a drink? Am I awake? What do I need to do? I. And then you have this being. And for me, it was just such an interesting, this other presence where we tend to kind of then want to control what they do to suit us. And for me, it was just such a big thing to really go, actually, how much am I stepping into this to her what she wants, like, where is the compromise here as a parent? Like, how much more can I compromise with her? Like, how can I give her the opportunity to do the things and empower her to be able to experience what she wants to experience? And yeah, I mean, I could talk about it for a lot longer than we have here, but it was such a simple exercise, but so powerful for me to really step back from a spiritual perspective and realize how much we try and we do control our children, when they eat, what they do, where we go, how long they stay at the playground. And to be able to step back from that was really freeing. And we could probably apply that to many things in our lives that we
Yeah.
grasp to that control too, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
and some of these kids are recognizing that that feels like control and their spirit just
mm,
rebels.
mm,
It's
mm.
um your story just reminds me of a friend of mine who's in my parent group right now. And these are the conversations that we have. So feel free to join us
Yeah,
sometimes. It'd
I'd
be a
love
blast.
to. I'd love to.
Um, she was just telling me she's got a 14-year-old and a 25-year-old, both of which were almost opposite ends, and she homeschooled one and not another. It'll be disservice. If you're out there listening, I'm telling your story. Um, but back to the yes days. It not it may not just be one day a year. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
she has her as her boy was a teenager. It's just battle after battle after battle, and nothing she said was right. And it just got to a point where it's like I just will say yes, whatever he
Mm,
wants.
mm,
I will say yes, and it was the hardest thing she did, yet she did. And over time, this combative kiddo was taking it in a little differently. And it's like, well, she's supporting me.
mm,
And what's going on? And again, she tells it in this incredible way. But the bottom line was there was a shift. And as he began to feel safer and trust that he was being heard and his judgment was being respected, now there were some things that he had to learn some tough lessons as a result, and she kind of held back in, oh man, just what that feels like. But it shifted significantly in him. And what was it? Was it that safety in his own house, that I don't have to worry about what hammer's going to come down on me? And even in little kids, if we could teach them the whole idea of an inner compass, like how can we not discipline our kids? We need to set boundaries. Yes, absolutely need to set developmental boundaries so they know who they are and where they stop. And like that's probably the biggest disservice in my book of not guiding. It's not controlling, but it's guiding and teaching. But yeah, let them make a bad choice and then sit them down and say, what was your heart telling you when you just went up and smacked little Billy on the side of his head? Okay, so I mean, obviously safety things and like that, but it's still how we react to that. Go to your room, you're not coming out for a week. Now take time out. You need to regroup and let's talk later. I mean, there's all kinds of subtle ways, but my point being even saying, check in with your heart. What honestly were you feeling? Did you hear a little voice that said, should I or shouldn't I? And listen for that voice again and what feels right. My little niece, I'll never forget, she was maybe 4 or 5 and I was over their house and she was in bed for about 2 hours, woke up, grabbed her mom, and for some reason I went into the room with them as she's talking to her mom. And she's sobbing and she goes, oh, my heart hurts. And we're like, one, she had a little bit of an inverted chest when she was born. And it's like, now does her heart hurt? What? She experienced that dissonance of intuition of I did something wrong. Here she said something that she felt bad about to one of her friends. And her heart hurt. And it wasn't until she was able to talk about it and get it out. That's the inner compass. If we could encourage our kids to listen to however they experience it, that's how we teach them. That's discipline. That's I hate that word. What is that? It's helping them to be able to make those choices based on their own choice. And if you're going out with your friends, know that if somebody starts drinking, please call me. I'm not going to get mad at you for going to a party with drinking. Just do what feels right to you. You're not going to be in trouble. So we need to give that permission and safety and
and kids
save
have to,
all this stuff.
Absolutely. We talk about agreements with my daughter. So rather than boundaries, it's agreements, which means that we sit down, we talk about what needs to be in place and why, and she gets input into that and what might happen if that doesn't happen. And she, for most years, she gets it really, really easily. We talk about agreement, did you remember what we agreed? And the other thing is often the language I use with her is choice. So was that a good choice? Did you feel that was a good choice? Because it is a choice, right? I mean, often I know there's impulse. I mean, there's a whole lot of other, in-depth discussions and topics around the there's a word for it, when you can't control the impulse of things, but a lot of that's just emotion moving through anyway, or feeling. But yeah, I love that. I think, it's funny, a real little segue side story, that as I was driving home, I met up with some beautiful friends last night, and I was coming back home and there were 3 girls. I don't know how young they were, but they definitely didn't. I was coming back reasonably late. They definitely didn't look like they should have been outside. They were all in their pajamas. One had a blanket and they were running across the road. It was about 10:30, quarter to 11 at night. And I just smiled because I thought, they've probably snuck out. Part of me, my mum me is like, oh, these girls are out. That the thing that popped into my head, which just related to what you said, was I was like, yeah, I'm going to say to Lily, go out, go out, sneak out, have fun. Like, we've all done it. But if you feel uncomfortable, you can always text me, and I'm not going to get upset that you've snuck out, but at least I would know that she would be safe, because there are sometimes dangers out there, right? But we've all done it. We've all done that. And that's just almost part of growing up, right? Like, it's just, you do those dumb stuff, and it feels exciting at the time, and it feels like you're taking risks, and it's great to experience that. But exactly what you were saying, it's setting, if we don't set up the environment for them to feel safe when they feel unsafe themselves or feel under a lot of peer pressure, we're not going to be the ones that they call. And that's really, for me personally, really important. I want her to know that I'm going to be there and not, be upset about the fact that she's doing something that I personally think that she shouldn't be. So yeah, that's all part of it as well. It's setting that everything around that, right? Whether it's spirituality or anything in general with children, is all around that, the ability for them to be able to try and talk to us about it, or someone about it, which I think is really, yeah.
Yeah. And that's one role that I kind of serve, being that someone. I mean, especially for the older kids. I mean, they're just not going to think of my life, think of your life. You don't tell your parents everything.
Exactly.
Or like most, almost, and to build that foundation early on, at least let them know that, yes, I am here, and go through the heartbreak that's going to happen when they start pulling away. Here's my little baby who trusted me with everything. Now they won't talk to me.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's needing to happen for them to explore inward.
Absolutely.
And again, that's
Yeah.
just to throw a book out there for you. It's that Anna book is my top favorite, the one for this kind of work. It's called The Spiritual Child.
I've
by
screenshotted that.
Lisa Miller.
Yeah. I've got it on my list, but I haven't read it.
Oh my gosh. So just the first half of the book just talks about this spiritual foundation, refers to some of the, like from 0 to 10, the spirituality of a kid is mom's usually, or grandma's, or a significant safe person. And then the second half of the book, which not having kids, but helps sort out my own teenage experience in a different way, is realizing that as a teenager, they go on their first spiritual quest. And that quest, even though we don't have deserts, and well, kangaroos and outback, maybe there is a quest out there, but not in like Ohio. But that inner journey is going to happen. And they're going to ask questions. Who is God? Who am I? Why am I here? When you and I ask those questions, we don't have answers right away, if ever. But they're going to start asking them, and it's going to feel like this emotional void because they don't have answers, and it's going to be scary. And they might even go through a bit of a developmental depression and aloneness and separation, and it's coming into that, which is the reality spiritually. We are alone, but we're not, and the only way to grow into that is to go through it. And if we can even, I try with the kids in my groups, the older ones, is let me give you some insight into your parent. Look out, parents. Here's what's really happening, kids, with what your parents are thinking about teenage kids. You guys know that you're tough. And it's like, what do you mean? So it's funny.
Awesome.
The more knowledge they have, the better off. But here's this spiritual quest. You are going to be asking these questions, and it is hard. And, I know you love your mom and you keep pushing her away. I mean, I don't know that from the mom, and they know I don't know that. But just to normalize their experience, you're not doing it wrong. This is what you need to do. Come to the group, let's talk about it. So you do have a place to talk about it. But
yeah.
this, who tells us what normal life is normal,
Mhm.
but it's a natural process, and let's let them know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what the work that you're doing is just so incredibly important because, you know, for that aspect alone, just someone that's not, as much as we are often well-meaning as parents, sometimes we do get in the way of that, right? And we've got our own stuff that we deal with, and having the ability for these children to be able to talk to someone or hear others talk about it to someone else, and having that go-to person is just, it's incredible. I think that's just such a gift to any child to be able to have that, whether it's an aunt or someone like yourself. Like if they've come to your course, they know it's a safe environment. They've come to your sessions, they know, they'll be able to have that ability and be able to have just that space for people to be able to, for the children to be able to talk to someone or be in the presence of someone that just feels like they're understood must be incredible for them. Yeah.
And I'm even realizing still the power that is, not the power's not the right, but yeah, this is powerful stuff.
Mm, mm,
And it's, sometimes
mm,
we don't see our own gifts,
mm,
you know, and to realize that, yeah, this is big, and I am that person. And
mm,
at night that I wish, oh man, let's just cancel this meeting because this is the last thing I want to do on a Tuesday night. It's like these kids are relying on me. I've become someone to them, and I owe them that So it's really, it's big, and it's, what it must be like when you really reflect on what being that parent
mm,
is. I
mm,
mean, I am for this kid. It's me. I am the person,
mm,
and I'll
mm.
always be that person. And that's like huge to
Yeah.
step into.
Yeah,
Lucky
absolutely.
you. Lucky you.
Yeah. It's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. I think every parent goes through a stage where it crosses their mind that they don't want to be a parent within it. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my cat, but he's being extremely vocal right now, so he comes through. He's a little bit disjointed because I've shut one of the doors he wants to get into.
Oh, you don't shut doors on cats, right?
No, not this one either. He's quite a big sense of entitlement. I'll segue that you talked to one of my good friends is an amazing animal communicator, and he regularly tells her that he is God. So he's got a real sense of entitlement. He is a God. Yeah. And so yeah, he does not like it when he can't go where he chooses. But I digress.
No, I love it.
Yeah, he's amazing. But I think, yeah, every parent, and I say every, that's a sweeping statement, I know, but most parents, mums that I've spoken to have had a moment where they don't want to be a parent. And a lot of that is just, it's hard, or they're going through their own process, and because it brings up so much stuff for ourselves to work on. And then there's you're feeling like your independence has been taken away, and you love this child so incredibly, and then it becomes this guilt cycle, and how could I think that, and it's not talked about enough. But it's I think it's that coming back to why I love the work that you're doing, and others like you, is it comes back to it's we've lost that tribe where we've been surrounded by community, or surrounded by people, or even we're so insular even in smaller families. That support of being able to take the child, and it's all of that. It's almost like I feel the work you're doing, and supporting the parents is extremely important as well. So I love that that's coming through around, I think you mentioned a parent gathering, and with the children, it's all, you're creating this this community. And technology is amazing in this aspect, right? Because you can join online from anywhere, if given time zones, and be able to experience that in some form, or the children as well. Like, the kids can jump online. I'm just curious the time, but I just have a couple of with
Oh
your,
wow, boy, this goes
I know,
fast. I
and I
mean,
feel,
I've gotten I've got no life. No, I'm all good. But
Yeah,
you've got like a day
I,
ahead of you.
I could honestly, Kayla, I could sit here and talk. I feel like I could sit here and talk for another hour at least. But we'll start to wrap it up because it's quite hard for people on the replay. But it's and hopefully we'll do this again. But I'm curious with so people can join from all over the world. Do the children come to the online sessions with their parents, or do the parents just help them sign in? How does that work?
I don't have many rules. Well, it's not really a rule, but yeah, how it works. Um, it's really, I want it to be the kids group. So what I ask the parents to do is at least be off screen.
Yeah.
Um, Now the younger ones, well, two things. Back to the parent group. The parents, you could be a parent of any child's age. So we've got like parents of
Oh.
5-year-olds and 25-year-olds and everybody in between. So while my groups are limited to 8 to 18-year-old kids, the parents can, you know, doesn't have to have a kid in my program to participate. But the children then, um, they log on. Often mom is the one that's sitting there and then she'll go off. But when we have some of the teenagers are like, you know, on their own doing this, at least half of the younger group, mom is like hovering somewhere because you could see the kids even asking maybe sometimes how to answer a question or is this
Sure.
okay? Or sometimes we have such amazing speakers on that most of the time the moms that know me and know the speakers, they're going to be hanging out somewhere. They admit this to me. It's like, I'm just in the kitchen and I make sure the volume's up because we've got this psychic channeler on giving in. So, you know, they wish they could be on, but I just ask that they're not
Mm,
on. As far as the other stuff, so many of these kids are shy and some socially awkward just because of their own lived
mm,
experiences. Um, they don't need to have the video on when they come. So they could start video off. Well, they could stay video off and just observe the whole time. I ask that we have introductions that I at least see some response in the chat. And it's like, first name, where are you coming from? How old are you? Now, again, I do also kind of like a little safety check if I don't know the parent or the child. If I've never met the
mm,
child or seen the name before, they need to at least flash their video on so I see a kid there
mm,
because I'm not gonna
mm,
play this game of like weird stalker
mm,
people. And I ever actually bumped somebody off when they didn't give a response. I don't know who they were. Could have been a parent. I don't know.
mm.
Um, so the kids can come, just observe. It delights my heart beyond reason. Or I know the kid's shy. They're not going to talk. And by halfway through the group, their video pops on. And I'm like,
Oh,
yes, telling me that this is such a safe group and they're feeling
yeah.
welcome already. And it's just so sweet.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
Yeah, it's really amazing. We've got one kid from France that at mom sets the alarm at 12:30 and he joins us at 1 o'clock.
In the
And he's like
morning.
sitting there and he's half asleep and but it's
Wow.
important. Yeah, so it's really neat. Um,
Wow, that's incredible. And the
yeah,
parent
we did have a
gathering?
boy from Australia the first time. He would be
Ah,
eating breakfast with us, waiting for the bus at 8 o'clock, and then he'd jump
nice.
off. That was fun. Yeah.
That is cool. And the parent gathering is a different one online?
Yeah, so the parent schedule is about to go in. I'm just about to launch my website in 2 weeks. I'm so
Yay,
excited.
exciting.
It's awesome. And it's going to change the format a little bit. So parents meet twice a month. It's the first and third Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So what are you, 14 hours different? No, four,
Um, oh, you'll be
yeah,
stretching
14.
me to think that. Yeah, so it
It's
was
three
7 a.m.
o'clock, 7 to you.
It'll be
So
8
yeah,
a.m. Yeah.
it'd be, yeah, 12. I don't even know, 12 o'clock maybe. I don't know. But um, so it's for 2 hours. And then what I'm about to start is like a membership to really encourage community and not just sporadic here and there. Although parents, we're going to record stuff too, so parents don't have a life that they can predict. I know that, if they're there, they're great, and if
Yeah.
not, but it's really a community of women that are getting as much out of it personally and have that safe place and can be
Mm.
the place that is like, you know what, please someone take my kids, and be okay to say that and know they're not going to be judged,
Yeah,
you
that
know.
sounds
Um,
amazing. Yeah.
it's truly just so much fun to do. And then the other for the kids, it's on Tuesday nights.
So is
And
the I'm so I'd really like to join the parent one. So have you started that already, or is it about to start?
no, it's been going on.
Oh, it has.
So actually, our next meeting, and I'm looking at my calendar, is the next week,
Oh yeah.
Wednesday night. I always post things, the promos on my own Facebook, and I'm waiting. Um, yeah, give me your email, and
Yeah. Yeah, you have my
I'll
email.
add
Yeah.
you to that.
Yeah, do.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Hello,
Yeah.
I'm on camera, and now I'm getting nervous. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. No, that would be great
So
because I think that would be my Thursday morning, which would work really well for me. But well, I'd love to come along. I think that sounds incredible. And I've kind of been seeking that. I'd love to um, have a group of parents and mums and just to talk about this kind of stuff more openly. And I've attempted to try and
yeah,
pull people in to do this just casually, but it's hard to keep that going. I think if it's an organized thing and it's someone's facilitating it, it's much easier to turn up and to share within that community like that, which is awesome.
yeah.
I will need to go because I've got other places I need to be this morning. But what I'll do is I'll put I always rewatch all the videos. So I'll go through and I'll put all the links to the books you've mentioned and again to Ascended Masters and everything that you're doing into your Facebook page. So if people are curious, all that information will be there. And yeah, thank you so much. I've just loved this. Like I honestly, if I didn't have other commitments, I feel like I could just sit and talk to you for so much longer. So I'd love to chat again. I'm sure we'll keep
Yeah,
in
this has
contact
been
anyway.
incredibly
So
comfortable. So appreciate it. And yeah, we'll have to have like part two and part three sometime,
yeah, I'd
because
love to.
boy, it's
Yeah.
pick a topic. I didn't even tell you kids stories, so that'll be
I
next
know,
time.
and I was really curious to hear all that as well. So maybe even if it's just a short pop up, we can do one, and we can talk about that, and that would be amazing. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love that
Wow.
very much. So
Okay.
thank you
Well,
so
thank you
much.
so much.
Yeah,
And
enjoy your evening,
yeah.
and we'll talk
And
to you
your
really
day.
soon. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Yep. So we're off Facebook. Yeah, stopped. Awesome. That was
Yeah,
so
there's
good.
nothing worse than like an open mic, Even the president gets caught on open mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is funny. I'll stop the